Welcome to the Metamorphosis Project podcast. I'm your host, Tina Eichenberg, and this is a space where transformation begins. Here, we dive deep into energy healing, self-care, and the power of mindset to help you break free from old patterns and design a life that feels aligned, vibrant, and authentically you. Each week, we explore the tools, techniques, and real-life experience that guide us toward lasting healing and growth. Because true metamorphosis isn't just about change. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. Now, let's get into this week's conversation. Welcome, Jack, to the Metamorphosis Project podcast. Thank you so much for coming on, and I am so excited to hear your story. I mean, I'm gonna probably spoil part of it, but it just amazed me that you survived 3 strokes. I mean,
Yeah,
that's astonishing. I mean, a lot of people don't, I mean, I think in this day and age, people will survive one, maybe two, but like once you get to, you know, more than that, typically it's not, I mean, I don't know the statistics, but it just doesn't sound like something that you would continue to go through and flourish from.
it's not something that I plan to do again. And if you
Not
want
something you
to,
plan to do the first time, I'm sure.
no, and a funny stat for you, the third one to this day, I still don't know when it happened.
Wow.
No idea.
So they just found it after running like a follow-up test.
Yeah, there was a process which I'm sure we'll get to where I found eventually a brilliant neurologist, and she showed me that I had because they basically show you the bleed points on your brain,
Oh,
and they
wow.
come up, they look like stars, very shining points of stars. And there was one very bright one slightly less bright, and one a little bit faint. And that faint one, she said, could have happened in my sleep or any who knows what time.
Wow. But it was definitely that was definitely a third one. It wasn't there after the first two.
Yeah, yeah, it was disconnected.
Wow. So go back to the beginning and tell us like how did all of this transpire and what did you gain out of going through this journey?
Great question. So it's probably good to put in a bit of context. I've always been someone who's been quite adventurous and active. I wouldn't say that I'm not gym freak, but a gym addict or anything like that. But I've always been someone who's been very a bit of a risk taker. I think I put my mum through a bit of hell through that one, through doing dangerous things through my life, whether it was running through with the bull, swimming with killer whales in Norway. I climbed Kilimanjaro. I've
Wow.
always loved these sorts of things. So I was a scuba diving instructor for a while, and did some stuff with sharks. So
Those those of us from the Gen X generation are kind of adrenaline junkies, I think, because we were always on our own and always had to entertain ourselves. And so, we often go for things that are a little bit riskier.
yeah, and so that's a bit of context. So with this happening, it was in many ways a bigger shock. But in my early 30s, so we're talking March 2019. I was working for a corporation, for a business that I ended up being made redundant last year, which we might get to. But I was away on a sales conference, and as anyone knows, on a sales conference, at the end of the day, you often go for a couple of drinks. Um, and we went into a restaurant, and I only had, thankfully, one beer at this point. And I remember walking in, and it's the feeling, it's the most bizarre experience and feeling. But my left foot, I swear to God, felt like it was magnetized to the floor, which makes no sense because my
Right.
foot is not made of metal. But that's the immediate thought that it walked in, suddenly jarred. And I'm standing there, and everyone to my right is taking their seats, and I'm stuck. And but especially as a male, you don't want to make a scene. We're probably worse at that than anybody. Going, I'm not going to ask for help.
Right.
But I end up dragging myself to the end of the table, and I'm lifting up my leg, and it's completely dead. It's heavy. It's no feeling, nothing. And I stupidly take off my boot, which caused problems because couldn't then put it back on. But I noticed a friend of mine was going out. A friend of mine was going outside for a cigarette, and I did smoke at the time. And I said, "Oh, can I just join you?" He's like, "Yeah, no worries." And everyone just decided to order a round of shots, which thankfully I went, "I'm fine on." That was a really good decision. Not all decisions I made were good, I'll admit. But we went outside and I got him to kind of quietly help me because I was kind of on one leg. And I sat down on a bench and this feeling of numbness and heaviness started to go up my body. But I feel
Mm.
fine. I feel absolutely fine. I'm speaking as clearly then as I am to you now. But I slowly start to do this on the bench. And this transpires for a while, and then the feeling goes away. And I'm like, oh, I'm okay. Maybe it's a trapped nerve. And then it comes back really quickly.
Mm.
And we decide, as much to my protest, that going to hospital is probably a good idea.
Probably.
Yeah,
Good
being a
front.
stupid young, again, being a stupid young male, I refuse the idea of getting an ambulance. I say, let's get an Uber because it's not that serious. Someone comes out, I say, look, my knee's playing up because after climbing Kilimanjaro, my knees were a bit knackered. And so I just said, I'm being grumpy. I'm going back to the hotel. That, I'd rather say that than affect people's evening,
Right. Right.
not knowing the context of what was going on. Anyway, we get to the hospital, and anyone who's been to triage or A&E or ER or whatever they call it, normally what happens, you get there, you go, this is what's wrong. They go, thank you, it's good to see you. Sit down and we'll see you in
Right.
3 hours.
We'll see you in 8 hours. Here's a
Exactly.
number.
Yeah. This was the first indication for me when I knew that I was in trouble because I'm there kind of leaning on the counter with my friend who to this day I love him to bits. He was with me virtually that entire night and he's seen me at my worst and vice versa. And he's very, very special to me. Um, but I explained what's going on, the timeline, and they go, okay, Mr. Glennon, not a problem. A door immediately opens, you get thrust into a wheelchair, off you go. And
Mm.
I'm being raced in, and I'm going, oh, this is not normal. Lifted up, shirt ripped open, all the things stuck on your chest as they normally do in the movies, and suddenly surrounded by doctors and nurses. And so I'm starting to panic a little bit, going, this is not normal.
Right.
This isn't a trapped nerve. And I hear someone, and I don't know, it was a male, I don't know who, say the word stroke.
Mm.
And when you've come from a very active, I'm Superman, kind of
Right.
resilient, that is terrifying. And I'm not ashamed to admit that I started to cry in fear. I was absolutely terrified and very confused, going, this doesn't make sense. How can I possibly having a stroke? That's just such a foreign concept. Anyway,
Right.
fast
Because you're
forward.
because you're doing all of this sporty stuff, right?
Yeah,
You're for all intensive purposes, you take care of yourself. I mean, no regular person who's not taking care of themselves can climb a mountain like Mount Kilimanjaro. I mean, it's just not possible.
no, I mean, I'm don't get me wrong. Like I said, I've never been the fittest of people,
Right.
but I'm always been about
Right.
balance.
Right.
But this concept was just so foreign. And so from that, several tests were taken, and the symptoms and signs, the worse it got to my tongue. So I had numb tongue. So I was talking with lisp.
Mm.
Um, and lots more tests, and it subsided. And they kept me in overnight. And this was on the Gold Coast, and I at the time lived in somewhere called Cairns, which is from Falmouth, Queensland, 2.5 hour flight away. And I was supposed to go home the next day. And I think throughout the whole process, I'm quite stubborn. I'm not to be quite stubborn, but I can be very driven as well. So throughout that night, as the symptoms and signs subsided, they were all very confused. They didn't know quite what had gone on. They thought it could be a stroke, thought it could be what's called a TIA, which is kind of semi-stroke. And I had a physiotherapist through the night basically do strength tests on my feet and to compare my left side to my right. And I made deals with her throughout the night, going, if I pass, can I get an hour back and get discharged earlier? Because I've got a flight to catch at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Uh,
That was my driven,
right.
I'm getting home.
Right.
And
Right.
again, fine line between sensible and stubborn, which is a bit of a theme. But I was very driven to do that. Thankfully, I did make it. And I woke up next morning very groggy, very out of it, not much sleep. But they didn't know what was going on. So they said, look, yeah, we're approving you flying home. We want you to see this neurologist, this test to
Right.
find out everything. So I get home, and after some people won't know is after a stroke, you're not allowed to.
I have no idea where that came from.
I've seen that before. I don't know why it happens either, but I'm glad you're celebrating me getting home. um, but you can't drive for a period of time if you suspect having a stroke. So I went from, being quite active and then your freedom's gone, you can't work, you can't
Right.
drive, and you don't know what's going on. And I didn't handle it very well. I went very internal. I was quite angry with the situation, and that showed after a period of time as well, because you still didn't know. And I had so many tests at that point, and the neurologist I had at the time, which wasn't great, said, "Look, we don't know. So it's probably your body just had a hiccup. Carry on with life. Take aspirin for 6 months,
Oh,
and you should be fine." So it didn't give you that closure.
so they didn't, so any tests that they ran, it didn't show anything,
Didn't show anything at that
didn't
time.
show anything at that time.
No,
Did they just
which
not run the right test?
I think they ran majority of tests. They missed a couple, which I did later on,
Okay.
but they missed something which came to light later on. So that was from March, April 2019 and then ends, till middle of at the end of the year. Everything fine, okay. Probably didn't process it fully. And I had a
Right.
trip with a friend of mine in India in January of 2020. And the trip was myself and we would take a tuk-tuk and drive the length of India in a tuk-tuk.
Yeah. My husband went for a work trip and had to drive in a tuk-tuk. That was like he was like this was bonkers the way these people were driving in these little cars.
Yep, we did it for 16 days, the whole length of
Oh
India.
wow.
Just a compass and a map going, great,
Yeah.
awesome. But what you don't want to happen is in the middle of nowhere whilst you're buying fuel and oil is to have a stroke.
Oh my gosh. Well, you pick the most opportune times, don't you?
Yeah, perfect timing. And it's weird. This time there was no fear. I was literally had fuel in my hands and I just slowly, literally almost in slow motion, went down onto the dirt
Mm,
ground. And I was furious. I remember shouting every swear word you can
yeah,
imagine under
I'm
the
sure.
sun, and my
I'm
poor friend
sure.
looking very pale. But I knew exactly what it was. Anyone who's had a stroke before, there's a taste, and it's really hard. It's like metallic taste.
Hmm.
The moment I've tasted that and I felt it go, I knew what was going on. And with that came, yes, there was definite anger and frustration, but there was a sense of, I need aspirin. I need to I need to raise my heart rate because whatever's going on, I've been here before.
Right.
I know I've had that blind sense of it's gonna pass, but I've got to do the right things. And so I immediately went into go mode, if you like. So get me back to where we were staying, which was a small sort of small hotel sort of thing. And I said, I need to raise my heart rate and give me aspirin. Most people would have gone after that point, okay, get to hospital or go home.
Right.
Again,
But not
sensible,
you.
stubborn. No, I was very much. Firstly, the hospital thing was out because I didn't want to go to a foreign hospital where they didn't
Right.
know the history, and in my mind, Western medicine had failed me already, so I wasn't going to go, to try something else until I got home and to dug a little deeper. But because I had that stubbornness, I was very much, we're finishing this.
Yeah.
I'm not coming here and not finishing. I'm fine. I can stand now. I can walk now. It's passed because it did pass, and I'm going to deal with it when I get home. Sensible, stubborn. Bit of a theme, like I
There's
said.
such a fine line for you.
Yes, very much. And unwise probably to some. But we did finish one of the best adventures I've ever had. And I love the guy of it. He's, again, really close friend. So I get home, and what a lot of people would do is they would share this information with their partner. My wife is here. My mum's back in the UK. So you'd share that information. I didn't. And that was deliberate because I knew both of them would be understandably concerned
Hmm.
and also, really wanting context and answers.
Right. And you
But
didn't have those answers.
I didn't have those answers.
Yeah.
I didn't have any information. So there was no point telling them that until I had that in more detail. So I went to my GP, and this will stay with me. Not the best information given. He suggested I might have MS at that point.
Mm,
Really smart. Thankfully, I was in a very much focus mode. I'm not going to get affected by that comment.
right.
But more tests were done, and it was found out at this point, because I had a fantastic neurologist this time, that I had in fact had 3 strokes. Because she showed me the full scans and showed me the 3 stars on my side of my brain. So that was good because you could then process what had happened.
Right.
Then you need to know why this is happening. So more tests, and this was more complicated because if you've caught up the timeline, we've gone from January, February, now we're February, March 2020.
Yeah. Now you're hitting COVID.
Exactly. So everything's a bit more complicated.
Yeah.
Everything's a lot more solo. You can't have
Right.
support. You can't have people there. You're on your own.
Yeah.
Um, so basically, what we found out, short versions, we found out the cause was that I had an issue with my heart. So when you're born, we all have a partition in our heart, and when you're born, it's actually open. It's got a flap. When you take your first breath, it goes and it seals. For whatever reason, mine never did.
Huh.
So for 30 for whatever years at that point, it was doing that,
Okay.
collecting all bits of lovely stuff that we have flowing through our body. So any of these situations could have had at any point, whether I was underwater at 30, 40 meters or on top of a mountain. That's a
Mm,
big context to get your head around, because if that had happened, I'm not here. There's just, I'm not here.
right.
So there's no gratitude at that point, but also elements of we need to fix this. So I go in and I have heart surgery, keyhole surgery, on a Thursday, where they basically put this amazing device. It's like a fan through the two bits of partitions of my heart, and it goes, opens up and seals. Brilliant. Happy days. So I'm in hospital on the Thursday. On the Friday, I'm still in hospital and I'm working, which was my way of kind of coping in many
Right.
ways.
Right.
Not the smartest, wouldn't recommend it. It's not worth it. But it was my way of doing something I can control.
Yeah.
So I get out of hospital, and then the Tuesday I'm at home. My wife's out actually giving plasma, ironically, and my heart immediately goes bang and starts beating so fast and also irregular at the same time. I start panting, I throw up, I feel dizzy. Not in a good place. Sensible thing would be call an ambulance. I call my neighbor to check if I should call an ambulance, because that's smart. Uh, I'm very open of the mistakes I've made. Um, he walks in
You're
immediately. Looks,
you're not the only one. I think I
no, I
think
know
I
that's the
think
thing.
most people don't want they don't call 911 because they don't want to be embarrassed if it's not what they think it is.
Don't want the fuss.
They don't, right, they don't want to be a burden.
Yeah,
They don't want, yeah.
yeah, 100%.
So your neighbor said call 911.
Oh yeah, he was very pale. So they get there. My heart is doing 230 beats a minute. Um, and they put me in the ambulance, and weirdly at that point they stay there. They stay on my driveway, and I'm like, where we go? Well, aren't we off? They explain very calmly that the rate it's going, the irregularity is such a risk that they're worried about me going to cardiac arrest. And if that happens, they need another crew there to look after me while they transport me. So it's
Mm,
that funny situation of kind of
right.
panting on a driveway going, we should really go, but I kind of get where we're going. So we get to the hospital again with COVID times. So it's, people in hazmat suits walking around to a certain degree, and you're in your little
How
cubicle.
scary. How
I didn't get
incredibly
much
scary.
time. I'm literally sweating because your heart rate's going that
Yeah.
fast. My poor wife, bless her, she gets home and the neighbor comes out going, Jack's gone to hospital. He's gone to hospital. She rushes to hospital. They won't let her in.
Yeah.
It's not allowed. So it must be horrible for her. So what they do when your heart's going mental like that and also irregular is they firstly give you, I can't remember which order it is, but it's potassium and magnesium in a drip.
Hmm.
One of them hurts. I remember one of them feeling like someone's really squeezing your arm. Now, at this stage, I call my mum back in the UK just for comfort more than anything else, because there's an element of panic, there's an element of confusion. As I'm on the phone to her trying to speak as I'm panting, they rush in and go, "This isn't working. We have another we have another option, which is the only option, which you're not going to like, which is we're going to stop your heart and then defibrillate it to reset it again." So that's a very interesting thing to process. It happens a lot. But in that moment, there's obviously a lot of fear, 'cause there's no guarantee you're coming back.
Right.
So I'm on the phone to my mom and I basically say goodbye to her, which is a very emotional moment.
Oh gosh, how heartbreaking for her.
Unbelievably heartbreaking for her.
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
And
I
so
can't
helpless at the
imagine.
same time. Then there was a very strange switch, which I can't even explain to this day, because I go literally in a second from very emotional to dead focused,
Yeah.
almost subconscious. And it was this sense, and I remember saying it in my head, and I remember starting to verbalize it. You're going to wake up. 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 Just repeating it over and over
Hmm.
until I was out. And then thankfully I did wake up.
Yeah.
This happened 3 times to lesser degrees over the course of the next few weeks.
Mm,
The last time they said they couldn't defib because there was too much risk because there was such a short period of time
right.
between that and the last one. So it was a crazy period where you're facing your own mortality. You pick up little ticks. I like celery for a short period of time. I had Lisbon for a little bit of time. I now I don't think I'll ever 100% trust my body because you learn that your body isn't made of glass, but it's also not Superman either.
Right.
So I have a little tick now where if I feel, if you stand up too quick, you feel dizzy, or your body, you lay on your leg or whatever, so it feels numb.
Yep.
I pinch my thumbnail into my index finger,
Just to make
and
sure you're still there.
it's if I can feel that, I'm good.
Yeah.
Even though I've had the surgery, I've had everything, there's no real reason whatsoever why I should be in any danger more or less than anybody else. It's that sense check. So
Well,
it's that.
I'm sure in a sense you feel betrayed by your body.
No, it was more that realization, a bit of growing up in some ways. You feel it's that lack of trust which
Yeah.
changes. And it's almost that coming together with your body going, all right, mate, I've got you. And we'll do this together. I think it's that change of perception about resilience.
Okay. Good.
And I definitely, growing up, and I don't think it happened instantly. It definitely took a while for this to
Yeah.
process and come to terms with in many ways, all the way probably up to a year ago.
Yeah.
Because I definitely used to think resilience was definitely all about pushing through, gritting your teeth, getting on with it, British originally that I am, stiff upper lip and all that.
Hmm.
Um, but when you face your own mortality, it takes on a different meaning. It's not about endurance and getting through the pain. And there's so much alpha male promotion about that these days, which I think is toxic. It's actually about adaptation.
Hmm.
You know, it's forcing you to let go of who you were before and redefine yourself and being okay with that. Um,
Which is incredibly difficult for a lot of people to do because when they go through traumatic experiences,
mm.
oftentimes they're like, I just want things to be the way that they were.
Of course we do. That's completely normal. Yeah. It's about redefining that in your own mind, and it takes a little bit, takes a process to go, I wish things the way they were. Absolutely, and that's normal, and that's human.
Yeah.
But how exciting could it be what things potentially could be?
Yeah.
It's flipping it. And it's the same with, you know, health things like that, or when it comes to the professional world of being made let go or being made redundant. I had that last year. And that can be extremely difficult. You question your worth, you question your value, and go, I've worked with these people for so many years, and now that's gone. You flip it
Yeah.
and go, that's sad, and that's an end of a chapter, but there's also a new beginning. Yes, it's cliche, but it's cliche for a reason because it's true.
Hmm.
It's about flipping the script, and really redefining who you are and being okay with that and going, okay, this is an opportunity for a bit of a reset and going, rather than how can I get back to where I was,
Right.
going, where can I go and where do I want to go?
And so what was your thought process when you finally realized that you really needed to shift into a more mindful lifestyle and not push, push, push?
It's not overnight is the
Uh,
first thing. It's definitely a time and a process, and you have moments of, oh, I get that now. Um,
yeah.
and I wish it was as simple as turning a page and reading it and going, cool, that's it. I
Right.
had a moment because you need to let go of things first and foremost. I remember I had a moment after being made let go last year, where I was away. I did a bit of a road trip to clear my head. I remember I was driving. I was in America. I was driving down from the Sierra Nevada mountains, and I had music on, and I was just singing as we do. Not very good. And a specific song came on, and it, as often as the case, the lyrics were so relevant to what I'd just gone through, and I started to smile from ear to ear, and tears started to go my face. I just felt it go off. And it was just such a magical, brilliant moment. It will stay with me forever. And it's about being open to those moments and letting go.
Hmm.
You can't move forward until you let go.
Right.
So whether it's letting go of your resentment that your body's let you down, whether it's letting go of people who have let you down or businesses
Hmm.
that have let you down. It's taking that back and control and going, drawing a line in the sand and going, I'm going to move forward now.
Yeah.
It doesn't define me. I define me.
Now, do you still find sometimes resistance coming up to moving forward? Or have you had a nice chat with your ego and is like, no, we're not going to fall back. We're not going to fall back into that.
Yeah, I definitely. Not so much with the body side of things, but definitely with a career side.
Yeah.
It's all about putting boundaries in place and learning from your mistakes, but being open that other people make mistakes. So if you've had a leader that's not brilliant in the past, learn from that and be aware that not everyone's perfect and look out for those traits in other people in the future
Hmm.
and put in those boundaries. If you start a new role or a new job or have a new leader, put those boundaries in early and go,
Right.
this is what I'm going to be doing, but I'm not going to be
Right.
doing this.
Yeah. 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 Have that. Be sure to implement that life work coherence.
Yeah, I mean the fact that I keep the photo of me laying in hospital all wired up, looking really good, because it's a reminder of you idiot. What were you doing? You day after having heart surgery and you're working.
Yeah.
That's nuts. That's completely on me. Yes, there were certain individuals in the business at the time that I worked for that enabled that, and
Right.
that's on them. But I did it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I
You
will
had the choice. You made the choice to open up your laptop.
exactly, yeah, and I keep that as a reminder on purpose, because I'll never go back to that. I'm happily in a position where I'll say no because I'm a big believer that our careers are, yes, we spend so much time on our jobs, but they're there for three things: for you to give value, get value, and they're there to facilitate or to enable you to facilitate living the life you want to live.
Right.
Those three
Yeah.
things, that's it. It's simple. And I definitely used to be someone very career minded and going, I'm going to go at the top and it's changed. And I've got, that's right for some people, all respect to them. But for me, living through those things, seeing different perspectives of businesses and corporations and how they work, I go, no, I want those three things. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be killing myself to 8 to 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night for a job.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what are you doing now for your career that you love doing that is giving you those three things?
So I'm actually doing a couple of things. So firstly, I work with a company as a sales trainer. So I go out to businesses and train different forms of sales and different
Nice.
facets of sales, which is great. And again, that's training, developing people. That's always
Mhm.
been something at the heart of me. That was something I did last year where the reset is go, Simon Sinek talks, what's your why? What's my value? What's my core? What drives me? And every single role that I've always had, the best elements have been training and developing people. Even going laughing about it, teaching people how to scuba dive.
Mhm.
That was great. That's such a wonderful thing to be able to do is give people that skill for them for their life. So
Yeah.
that was a real moment of going, I know what I want to do. So I've got that element where I work for them, and I've also got my own coaching business which is online coaching called Glennon Peak Coaching, which came about very interesting throughout last year because I started coaching on various other people's platforms and just offering, an hour here, an hour there. And so many people going, so what's your business? I'm like, "Me." That's it, it's just me. Uh, uh, well, why don't you do it then? And again, ironically, it was the person who stayed with me in the hospital that night who full circle, I caught up with a coffee and he went, just do it. And he gave me a
Yeah.
couple of sort of push points and it stuck with me that night. It went round and round in my head and I just started writing names out, writing logos, writing mission statements. I went, yeah, I can do this. It's probably not going to pay all the bills all the time, but it's not about that. It's about my passion.
Right.
And it's going to be a long-term build. I'm going to take my time with this and take years. And because in the coaching space, there's so many, and you'd have seen them yourself, coaching programs that sell the dream
Yeah.
for a, and
Yeah.
I was going to say they're not accurate.
No,
And
no, I've invested in a couple of those.
yeah, and a friend of mine said, look, you can do two ways in this industry. You can go hard, go fast, spend a hell of a lot of money on marketing and promise the world and probably get a lot of money very quickly, but probably damage your reputation very quickly at the same time. You'll get in, get out fast.
Yep,
That'll probably be a year, or be authentic, be you, and do it for years. And no, it
yep,
won't pay the bills probably for a long, long, long time, but that's why you
right.
have another role. But you'll love it and you'll be authentic and you'll build up relationships with people that will last a lifetime.
Yeah, and
That's
they refer people to you, and that is how you, I mean,
growth.
businesses are about relationships,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of people in our industry that get their certificates, and they just sell their certificate.
And their soul in many ways.
Yeah, yeah,
I see a lot because because I'm in the industry now, I get targeted a lot, and
yeah,
especially by the uber ultra masculine.
yeah,
And it's everything that I'm not a fan of, if I'm honest, because
yeah.
it's so unhealthy in many ways.
There's
And
uber
it's not.
feminine ones as well. There's
I'm
the
sure
uber feminine side as well.
I can believe that, but it's also it's damaging to everyone involved. And it was never, the business that I've started. It's just me. So I have my passion. I write a blog. I do podcasts like this, and it's all about it's that passion. It's
Yeah,
not, I'm not doing it to get famous, I'm not doing it to
right.
get the money. It's
Yeah.
it's that value piece.
Is to
So if it's
share
not
your
authentic.
knowledge, to share what you know that some other person listening might say, oh, that's what I needed.
Yeah, and it's helping people on their journeys. I had the first person I started working with was based in San Francisco, and she was in the tech industry, and she'd been let go 16 times
Mm,
because kept on start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. And she was unemployed at the time, and she was lost and looking, not sure where to go, and thinking she might want to go into a leadership role. And we worked out that probably wasn't for her. But helping on that journey and helping her find that role. And when we caught up and she said, I got it, one of the highlights of last year
yeah,
for me.
yeah,
You know, that's why, because you see them on their journey and
yeah.
you take them with, and
That
now we're still continuing to work together for what she wants to do this year. That's
yeah,
gold.
yeah. It's that
It's
light bulb moment that they have going, oh, I, I did that.
yeah, yeah, I'm just saying, and it's not about, for me, it's not about, you know, having all the answers either.
Right, right,
I'm and with my coaching, I'm very authentic. I'm very open. I go with my own experiences and go, I've done this. Don't make the same
right.
mistake. First and foremost. But
Yeah,
because I lead with, I'm a big advocate of emotional intelligence. So I talk about self-awareness, empathy, emotional regulation. I work together with people on that. But it's not, I've got a 5-step program to make sure
right.
you're the best emotional. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah,
It's very much about the journey, but it's special.
it is. And you run into people who they're ready for the change. They don't, they're not looking for that that get quick rich scheme.
Yeah.
They're looking for lasting change.
Yeah.
And the way, I mean, it sounds like we both do business the same way. We want them to feel empowered, and we want them to gain these tools that they're going to have for the rest of their lives, and hopefully pass down to generations going
Yeah.
forward.
100%. I mean, remember I think about a month ago I had a coaching session with one of them, and she's new to leadership, and she messaged me. She had a big meeting with everyone, and she was really nervous with it. And she texted me telling me, just afterwards how well it went and how proud she was of herself and how, she's looking forward to the next one now rather than being scared about it. You know, that's brilliant. That's
Yeah.
why, it's again, it comes back to that word authentic. It's real, it's authentic, it's not for money.
Yeah. No, no. And that word authentic gets thrown around a lot.
Too much.
It's, and I think a lot of people don't really understand what that means.
No, I think I think unfortunately gets used um, with the wrong intentions,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate because when it's used with the best intentions, it's often received in blurred lines
Right.
because of that perception that's already been given.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are a couple key things that you would want listeners to take away? Like if you had two or three nuggets to pass along to them, what would those nuggets be?
I would say the first one, because I mentioned it quite a bit, about reclaiming your identity after setbacks. So that's all around taking time to redefine your personal and professional identity beyond what your title or role is.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a clear example of that when I left last year. The company I worked for, everyone called me by that name. I'd say I worked for Nokia. I didn't, but everyone called me Nokia Jack. I
Mm.
remember a friend saying when I left, he said, "You're going to find out you're more than Nokia Jack. Jack is more than that." And that stuck with me.
Yeah.
So again, redefine yourself beyond that role and reflect on your core values, goals, what truly matters to you, and then write down non-negotiables. That's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
What are non-negotiables to you and your value in your personal or professional career? So that'll be one with reclaiming your identity or setbacks. The other one, I'll give you two as I'm kind of adding extras to it, would be embrace the power of growth.
Yeah,
It can be terrifying
absolutely.
and it can be difficult and it can be sometimes painful. It's like going to the gym. You're working out a muscle and you've got to tear that muscle to help it grow a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, try and the first thing I'd say in any setback is feel it. Give yourself space to feel the emotions, everything that you're going through before. Once you've done that, then you can see through that
Mm-hmm.
these are opportunities for growth and learning through the failures or through the setbacks, whatever they might be. And set
Wonderful.
one small achievable goal per week for yourself. Keep going forward.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Where can people find you if they want to work with you?
So probably two different ways, depending on what school you're from. Instagram at Glennon PC, P for Peter, C for Charlie, or the website, which is www.glennonpc.com.
And of course, those will be in the show notes for everybody to click on. Is there anything that we've missed that you want to make sure that the listeners understand or know?
I always try and pass on the best advice I was ever given, which sort of links into everything, but it links into us being vulnerable, setbacks, overcoming things. It's always also about having a good network. And the best advice that I was ever given is in your lowest of moments in life, whether it's professional or personal, look up and have a look around. The people closest to you are the truest reflection of who you really are,
Mm-hmm.
and never forget that.
That's beautiful. I love that because we often compare ourselves to everybody,
Yeah,
even if we don't know them.
often more than the people closest to us.
Yeah. Jack, thank you so much for coming on. I've really appreciate it, and I've loved hearing your story.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Metamorphosis Project podcast. I hope today's episode brought you inspiration, joy, and a spark of empowerment. Remember, transformation is an incredible journey, and every single step you take towards self-care and healing brings you closer to the life you truly desire. If this episode uplifted you, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us to share this journey of hope, resilience, and joy with many listeners. For more tips, support, and inspiration, come and visit us at designyourexistence.com. Until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and keep shining brightly. You are absolutely worth every bit of love and care you give to yourself. Take care, stay joyful, and be well.